Hello everyone and welcome back to DCS WW2, where recently I had a viewer ask me about how I go about navigating on the World War II servers, where in general you have no map marker, so you have no idea where you are. This is certainly something that is challenging. It does take a lot of getting used to, but today I'm going to go through just a few tips that I've picked up either from multiplayer or single player, which are really useful for making this a lot more bearable and get you to where you want to be. Now, the first tip I'm going to give is probably the one that's a little bit controversial. Some people do consider this cheating. Other people say that because it's in the game, it's absolutely fine. I'll let you make up your own minds about this, but I just wanted to let everyone know. So, even when map markers are disabled, you can always find where you are on the kneeboard. To open the kneeboard by default, the control is right shift and K. And as you see here, it'll open a little map. You can use the open and close square brackets to zoom in and out on the map to move to various different positions. And what is important here is you can mark your aircraft's current position. If you do right control and K, what it will do is put down a little chevron where your plane currently is, with the arrow pointing in your plane's current direction. This works with all zoom levels, so I can put another one down on this map. The chevrons are persistent, so you will get several plotting along. Just keep track of which one is the new one for an updated position of where you are. Now, for this you do have to use these World War II style maps that come with the kneeboard. There may well be mods to replace these with other ones, I'm not aware of those. But this is very useful, especially if you get yourself completely lost. You can find exactly where you are on the map. Now, that is a little bit gamey. I like to think about it in terms of my pilot knows his directions a bit better than me, and this is my pilot working out where he is on the map, essentially saving me some work doing that. In general, I try to avoid it, but I do certainly use it from time to time, particularly if I've gotten completely disoriented in a dogfight. Now, the rest of the tips are all about real-world navigation, how we would find this if we didn't have a magic kneeboard. And my first tip here is going to be to actually make a flight plan for yourself. Work out exactly where you're going to fly before you even take off, and pick out a route that will be easy for you to follow, and that is generally not going to be the most direct route. So here I've taken off around these airfields over here, and let's say I want to head towards Argentan. Well, I can take the ruler and draw a straight line between the two. And so this gives me a compass heading of 132. Incidentally, to draw a straight line, if you've not used that before, if you click this little tool up here, this is the show ruler tool. You then right click and drag to draw a straight line. It will give you the compass bearing and will give you the range. If you click this M2 feet button in the top, it inverts the distance between metric and imperial. So that gives you a rough heading, and if you do a little bit of calculation, you can tell by what airspeed you're doing how long that should take, and so take note on your clock as to how long you should be flying in that particular direction before you get near your destination. One thing to be very aware of, though, is that in the vast majority of these World War II aircraft, the compasses aren't great. In particular, if we look down here at my main compass, as soon as I tilt off axis, the compass very often gets a little bit confused about what direction I'm heading in, and you have to level out again before it resets. See it there, resetting to my correct direction. Some aircraft are better at this than others. The Axis ones in particular will not give you a good compass reading unless you are completely wings level, so do just bear that in mind. And particularly the Axis ones, even if you're climbing, will very often jam the compass. In this case I want to head approximately 133 for 50 miles, so I can turn in that direction, head there, check my speed, work out how long I should be flying in this direction for, and go from there. Now that is all well and good, but it is very easy getting lost just based off of the compass directions alone. It's very easy to find yourself drifting slightly out if you're not constantly paying attention, and it's hard to constantly pay attention while you are constantly flying around, checking your 6, and since this is DCS, managing your engines to make sure nothing explodes on the way. So what's very often better is if you can find natural landmarks to follow. My favourite landmarks to follow are the train lines. These are shown in black on the map. They will appear even at fairly zoomed out map levels. And the nice thing about the train lines is they're easy to see on the ground and they're quite unique to follow. Other really useful markers are the waterways, and sometimes the roads themselves, shown in orange, can be useful, but do just be aware that as you zoom in there are a lot more roads, so it can be a bit harder picking out an individual road from everything else. By the way, here again saying that I want to get down to Argentan, what I could do is follow this rail line across Caen. There is a major loading bay in Caen, and then I can follow it southwest, looking for this right-hand branch that then runs along a river, and follow that down. That is a much more involved route, but is certainly something that should get me there. And this is certainly the kind of navigation that I use on the single-player campaigns very often, where we've got missions that are quite far away from your home airfield. It can be really useful doing this. So here you can see this is the rail loading yard, so I know that if I follow the rail line out here, I take the southeast branch of the rail, which is this one here, then I can follow this down. Just check my heading, I am indeed heading southeast, and so I have found the correct rail line, and I can keep track of my progress along this rail line by looking for major markers, such as this intersection over here will give me warning that I am getting close to the intersection I want to turn off at. Counting bridges is also really, really useful, and also keep an eye out for the major cities. So yeah, just after flying for a little while, I can see I've got the junction coming up here, where the rail line is splitting off down to the north. And so this is giving me a little bit of a heads-up warning that I'm approaching my turn. And I can see here that I'll know I would have gone too far if the rail line crosses a river. And so there we go, there's the junction there coming away. I can see the bridge at the river ahead, so I know where I am. I'm now turning south and following the rail line towards Argentan. Now the key thing about this technique of flying a planned route is always do your best to make sure you know where you are. Repeatedly check the map, look for major landmarks, and keep an eye on your current position. It is very easy to get lost when you don't have a marker, and so keeping this updated is really, really useful. This can be very, very good if you've got a wing of more than one person. One person can be very much focusing on the navigation, while the rest of your flight look out for incoming fighters. So here I can see that the rail line is just bent and is now running parallel to the river. So again, check on the map. That's this section here where it just bends and runs parallel to the river. So I know exactly where I am in YV13 here. So where I am, the rail line I've been following is now passing through a city. So I just double check. That's this city here. I believe that's Ronai city or town. And so again, I update my mental picture. I've just got a little bit further to go along the rail line and I should reach Argentan. And looking a little bit ahead of me, there we go, there are the hangars of Argentan airfield. Now it is easy to get disoriented. One thing to always check when you're following a distinctive marking like a road, railway or river is that it's going in the direction you think it should. So for example, here it would have been quite easy for me to turn off and go west here, but I can be alerted that I've picked the wrong road and turned off on this side one by the direction I'm going. So always check your direction, always double check. Now that's all well and good for if you're following a planned route and you're able to keep track of where you are along the way. What happens when you get lost, when something really throws you off and you have no idea where you've ended up? Well, in that case, you want to start looking for identifiable landmarks. Ideally, you should be doing this constantly throughout so you don't lose track of where you are, but obviously it's easy in a dogfight to get thrown off. You're concentrating on the plains, and then 5 minutes later you are in the middle of nowhere, and well, the Normandy countryside is a lot of forests, small square fields, and samey villages. So in terms of landmarks to look out for, perhaps the most useful are the airfields. There are quite a lot of airfields, particularly in the contested areas on most servers. We have a lot of them here, and the nice thing about them is they are all unique. If you zoom in, you can see the exact shape of the airfield, its runways and its taxiways, and so we can then spot an airfield and try and work out which one it is. So in this case, looking here, I've got this airfield right on the coast, very thick runway, a weirdly round area for a turning area back here, and then take a look at what's around it. Well, that runway is pointing towards another with a single landing strip and then 2 parallel taxiways. There's also a little town here, a little bit along the coast for it. So with that in mind, I'd look for a matching airfield. And I've got one right here, Long-sur-Mer. This is pointing towards this one, so this is Sumavu off my nose. This is Les Moulins, little estuary village there. Sorry that I'm butchering all the names. I don't know that many of these with their correct pronunciations. But that's got me a good ID, and so I know that airfield. And so let's say I wanted to go to Caprique. Well, I know I am here, so if I follow the direction of that runway, follow it along, Caprique should be somewhere over here. Now this is harder as you get away from Normandy itself and into the rest of France, where the airfields do become fewer and further between, but we do have a series here of airfields. Some are more difficult to spot than others, since some are grass airfields. But the bright side is that because the airfields are fewer and further between over here, when you do spot an airfield, it is easier to nail down exactly which one it is. The other landmarks that I normally use to orient myself with is Caen being the major one. I mostly think of Caen as a sort of bullseye that I will use throughout my flight. It is very easy to spot, being an incredibly large city. There it is right off my nose. And nicely, normally on the multiplayer maps, there will be a fair amount of smoke either on Caen itself or in the nearby area, simulating the fighting that has gone on. And so very often you can see that smoke from the distance, head towards the smoke, and you will normally eventually reach Caen, and you can reorient yourself from there. The other major landmarks is this little area here, often referred to as the P-trap, this P-shaped river estuary. You can see it just there up ahead. It's very notable on the coast. It is due north of Caen. Very easy to make out, very easy to orient yourself with. And then finally we have Le Havre and the estuary leading into it, which again is very large, very notable, even on not great weather conditions. Because of the reflection of the sky on the water, it is normally easy to see from quite a distance. At the other end of things, navigating, say, from Paris, what I'd very often do is either follow the Seine River along to the coast, or set a compass direction and head towards it until I can start seeing this estuary and Caen. Otherwise, there are a lot of forests with very unique shapes that you can also use. Problem is that there are a lot of small woods, especially in this area here between Caen and Paris. But still, those can be useful, as can the lakes. There are a fair few lakes in Normandy, very often with relatively unique shapes, especially around the Seine River, and so you can navigate using these. And finally, let's say all hope is lost. You have completely gotten disoriented, you have no idea where you are, you can't see Caen, you can't see any of the major signs, you're just somewhere in the vast wilderness that is France. What I would suggest doing in that situation is head north. Anywhere in the contested area, if you head north, you will eventually hit the coastline. And then from the coastline, you can judge exactly where you are. Likely once you've reached the coastline, you will be able to tell if there are lots of airfields. You're on the western half over here. If there are not a lot of airfields, you're over on the eastern half. You can also tell by the direction the coast slides. If it's at this northeast angle, then you are likely over here. If not, if it's east-west, you are likely over here. Either way, once you've located that you're on the coastline, head towards whichever end will bring you towards Caen and the estuary, and that will locate you more or less where this bullseye is here. Then finally, just a note that this does take practice. This is not something you're going to pick up immediately. I've been flying World War II flight sims for quite a few years now, doing a lot of visual flying rules navigation, and I still mess up plenty of the time. And so do expect that you will get lost from time to time. Don't worry about that, don't judge yourself. Just try and get yourself back on track, and then remember next time, if you can, try and keep better track of your position as you go along. So yeah, those are my general tips for navigating in World War II DCS if you do not have map markers enabled. If you have any other tips, please do leave them down below. And if you have any requests for future videos, again, just let me know and I will start working on them. Otherwise, I hope you all remember to be kind to yourselves and everyone else. Cheers.